That should be part of it. Lauren comes in each week.
And
Dresses
does
up.
something nuts to go along with podcast. I mean, it's not like we're ever going to use the video because of the way that we both look. But hey, it's still fun, right? I mean, sitting at a bar, having our drinks.
You're both very attractive.
Yeah, see?
I mean, that's all you need right there.
Right.
So, all right.
One person.
So now I'm going to
Vouching
shrink
for the attractiveness.
this down so we don't, get into that too much. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Beta episode number 1.
Number 1.
Beta number 1, because we're probably going to do this
Pop
again.
this tab so it
Yeah,
doesn't make
you
sound
probably
noise.
should pop that tab. So, all right, perfect.
Perfect.
Welcome, everyone. We are your Nerd Sherpas, here to take you across the frozen wastes of geekdom as we introduce one another to all manner of things from comics to games. Nerd on.
Nerd on!
So this is our pilot episode, and more appropriately, this is going to be a beta for us because it's our first podcast.
First time.
It is also our first time doing this together, other than just riffing when we hang out. So we'll see how things go. And
It's going to go great. I don't mean to spoil things, but...
well, that is a good spoiler. And it's super appropriate because our first topic is going to be the new Deadpool movie that was just released yesterday on February 12th.
Yeah.
And with all of the weird stuff that surrounds that character, I think that it's going to make for a good first episode.
So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go see it. No excuse not to go see it. It's the great movie.
So that's a pre-review from from our
I meant
boy
to say
here,
spoiler.
But yeah, spoiler alert, the movie is really good. So just to give you a little bit of background on the podcast and how we got here. So I'm Jacob, and this is Sean. I like to spend my time, and I delight in destroying denizens of fantasy worlds that delve in dungeons with dragons. So that's kind of my.
And I would like to learn what that means.
So, and actually, Sean is currently learning what that means, which we'll probably end up talking about Dungeons and Dragons in a future podcast. But this is our first go around, and I figured like Deadpool was nice.
You've been nerding for quite a long time now.
I have,
and I've just more gotten into it.
Yeah.
Beginner nerd,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping to become more of a nerd.
Would you say that?
And I think this podcast will be a big help.
Yeah, would you say that you're a diet nerd right now?
Diet?
And you want to graduate
nerd
to
zero,
full,
I think
you're
would be
nerd
it,
zero. Okay, all right. And you want to graduate to full nerd.
Right.
Okay, cool. I dig that. So, so to get us started with our first topic, I wanted to give everybody just a quick rundown of Deadpool, the character, because I know that some people will be familiar, some people won't. And more importantly, Sean, before this movie,
I knew who Deadpool was. I played video games before, but so I knew who he
So you
was.
played, like,
I knew he
the
was
Ultimate Alliance
funny.
series
I knew
or
he was
something?
irreverent, but that's about it. I know nothing about really his origin,
okay, cool.
or how he got his powers, or even really what his powers were, other than he was a smart aleck and was really funny.
All right,
but
sounds good. So a little bit of history behind him. So Deadpool came out of the early 90s when comics were kind of in what people commonly refer to as the Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages were a time where every comic book hero, just about, I mean, with a few notable exceptions, had pouches everywhere and had guns and swords and all sorts of crazy shit. And everybody was super dark and gritty. And the whole point was to make some horrible Frank Miller fantasy become reality in comics. And there were a lot more hardcore heroes that were doing terrible things like killing. Sex became a big deal in comics during that time.
I remember just as a kid, so back in 91, I would have been 11,
Yeah.
but I remember hearing just like how Batman was like becoming so much more darker and was like doing all these things, and like my mom wouldn't let me get those comic books.
Well, and that's actually funny because it came out of the 80s, especially with Batman, and Batman was an interesting character going into the 90s because in the 80s he had been turned into a really dark and interesting character, more of a brooding, what we think of Batman today as, I would say.
Yeah.
But that was the beginning of like people taking comics into an even worse place, and that's when people's moms started saying, "No, you can't do this. Comics are bad for you again." It's kind of
so I wasn't able to get into it then, but I'm able to get into it now.
Exactly.
So I got some catching up to do.
Yeah,
that's why you're here.
It was definitely more of a throwback back to the horror comics days where comics were polluting our youth. But so Deadpool was a character that was created by Fabian Nicea and by Rob Liefeld. So
I have no idea who those guys are.
Yeah, so Fabian Nicea was a writer, and Rob Liefeld was a writer and an artist. He did a lot of double timing work. And Rob Liefeld, just in the parlance of comics, is more so known for creating the more 90s Marvel big guns, gritty, pouch having characters.
And the pouch seems to be like a real thing.
The pouch is a thing, man. It was such a big deal with comics back during that time. And
that's when you start. I don't have a man purse. I have a pouch.
Yeah,
there could be ammunition.
Well, you don't just have one pouch. You have hundreds of pouches. You have bandoliers of pouches, belts of pouches, like pants with pouches.
That's nice.
I mean,
it's like for your belt, you could have like 100 phone clips.
Exactly. Yeah, it held true with the 90s and everybody having cargo pants. It was just cargo pants times a million. But anyways,
or MC Hammer pants,
with cargo pockets on them, which
those were rich people pants, though. I couldn't afford that.
And I just was never tall enough to wear them. So Deadpool appeared first in the New Mutants number 98, and of course that was when Fabian Nicea and Rob Liefeld introduced him to the Marvel Universe. And Deadpool's often referred to as the Merc with the Mouth. And you get a lot of that in the movie, obviously. But
it was mentioned quite a few times, but that was one of the things that went over me. But yet there were several people in the audience that were getting a good chuckle about.
Yeah, so his whole deal is that he's a mercenary. And when he was first introduced, he was a little bit less of a lovable lunatic than he is now. He was a lot more of he was an assassin, obviously. He was a mercenary.
He was a killing machine. You wouldn't like him, but now he's a nice, charismatic.
Yeah, now he's a super charismatic and slightly off, or very much off killing machine. But when he was introduced, he really kind of ran around as a foil to some of the other characters that were created as at that point in time. One of them was mentioned in the movie, and we'll get to that later because I actually want to talk about that. Was actually a big moment in the movie for me. Nice. So I want to get to that a little bit later. But anyways, Deadpool was really known for being a murderous nut job for the most part.
And that does come across in the movie still.
Yeah. And in the movie, they have represented him more as his character is now. He's over time transitioned into being more of the fourth wall breaking crazy person that he is.
Is that also part too because of comics have evolved from the Dark Age to now maybe something post Dark Age?
Definitely because of that. So comics have modernized quite a bit, but oddly enough, Deadpool.
What age are we in now?
That's a good question. I actually don't know that we've laid a. I mean, if you're reading Marvel comics now, it's the all new, all different Marvel, but we don't really have a good age. I mean, we're in a weird spot where comics keep reinventing themselves a lot more rapidly than they used to. You used to have decades or ages, like with the Dark Age or the Golden Age or the Silver Age before it. Now you have this weird thing where comics are almost rebooting once every 5 years or 2 years.
Just like the movies.
Just like the movies, yeah. So it's a
familiar thing that everybody likes, and we'll continue to go see it.
Yeah, and that's actually something really interesting that I want to think about for a while, and maybe that'd be a good topic for later, and talk about the ages of comics. But Deadpool comics came out when Marvel was really, and the industry as a whole was trying too hard. This was also the beginning of the era that killed Superman. And
yeah, you don't want to try too hard. I can vouch for that. Yeah. That's the story of my life.
Yeah, Sean, i.e. tries too hard.
No, I don't try too hard.
He succeeds too hard. I mean, just plain and simple succeeds too hard. But
trip and fall all the way to the top.
What's really funny is heroes of this time, and this is why Deadpool is almost like the perfect distillation of these heroes, is that heroes stopped caring about things like great responsibility and started caring more about how can I kill this bad guy with the biggest gun in the most crazy way. But I think that's enough.
A little more showmanship.
They definitely.
You can only kill people for so long before you got to find a new way to kind of spice it up and reinvigorate it.
Just like you spice things up in the bedroom. Sometimes you have to spice things up.
That'll be my expertise show.
Okay. For next episode, Sean tells us how to spice up the bedroom. So I think that's enough about like the history of Deadpool. Let's actually get into the movie. So we kind of alluded to this earlier. What was your awareness of Deadpool before you saw the movie?
Basically, just from I remember playing a video game,
Marvel Ultimate
Ultimate
Alliance.
Alliance, yeah,
Okay.
and he was in that. And I remember liking the character because he had good, his skills were good, but then also he was funny.
It's quips.
Yeah,
Right?
they did a good job with that, and it was just without knowing him, it was a character that I actually kind of got into without even really knowing about him. He was just really, you're able to like him very quickly if you like sarcastic people.
Yeah. So that's really interesting that your first introduction to him was in a video game where you knew nothing about him, but you still loved him as a character.
He came across really quickly.
And that's, I mean, I think that touches on Deadpool's premier aspect is his personality, because he's just so unique as a character that lives in a world where Peter Parker is constantly beating himself up because he got his uncle killed. Yeah. Or, Tony Stark is an alcoholic, or all of these other things.
Right. Captain America, like all these people with like these noble intentions. Yeah. And it's like, surely
all
these people with these special powers, there's not one kind of asshole, in the group.
Then you have Deadpool, who is just a literal murderous lunatic.
Yeah.
So,
but he does it with style and finesse.
And with pizzazz. Yeah. Pizzazz is definitely something I would use to describe Deadpool. So going into the movie, had you seen any of the advertisements or anything?
I had, yeah, and they were great. What was it, the fake, where they made it try to look like a love story?
Yeah,
so that was really
that's
good.
Actually, just to talk about the ads for a second, that was something really fun about this movie is the advertisements around the movie brought out some of what Deadpool was. So I think there was actually one place where they had a chimichanga food truck.
I missed
had
that.
Deadpool branding on it.
I feel bad. I wish that's my dream is to have a chimichanga.
Well, I think it was at the Alamo Draft House. They did a chimichanga food truck thing, and they had Deadpool branding and stuff on it to make it look
nice.
Somewhat like a food truck, but not really a food truck. But then, there were the love story adverts, which were really funny, especially the ones that got posted on the billboards.
Yeah,
it was like try to trick your girlfriend or your wife or your fiance.
Just even like what was the poster that they had for a while in the theaters where you could take your picture with it and it was like, "Come sit in my lap."
Oh yeah,
something
like pseudo Santa Claus where you could sit on him. Yeah, they did a really good job with the advertisements, and I feel like so the movie at this point has made something like. I want to like $40 or $50 million.
Oh wow! This is only the second day.
Yeah, well, Thursday, Friday, and now Saturday. Yeah. But it's already made a ton of money, and I think it's already
a movie that almost didn't even get made.
A movie that should not have been made after which we totally have to talk about the history of the character in movies, because Deadpool, this is not Deadpool's first movie. Deadpool has been in a movie
and the concept of Deadpool scared away studios, which are desperate to make anything a comic book into a movie, and they
will make anything. And you almost start to think that the movie itself was almost an apology to Ryan Reynolds. And Ryan Reynolds was such a nice guy. For Green Lantern, for one, which the movie did a great job of lampooning. For the original appearance of Deadpool, for all of the stuff that Ryan Reynolds does. And he's actually, especially after seeing this movie, and there was a movie that came out right before this, where it was a little bit of a more independent movie, where Ryan Reynolds was a person who, not to give too much away about that movie since we're not talking about it, but he had some instability issues, and he ended up talking to his pets. So he had a dog and a cat. And I'll have to pull up the name of the movie.
Ryan Reynolds as Dr. Dolittle. I would watch that.
But a demented Dr. Dolittle.
Oh, I'd really watch that.
But it was such a great movie where he had all sorts of horrible things happen to him, and he was actually a really nice guy. But you see a lot, and I feel like that was the movie that gave him the probably more of a chance to be Deadpool. Yeah, it was called The Voices. It was released in 2014, and really great movie. You should definitely go check it out.
Well, I'll have to check it out.
But I feel like that was him re-auditioning to be Deadpool and saying, I can do crazy and I can make it interesting and make it fun. But anyways, so Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
Yeah, Ron Reynolds is. I liked him back from Van Wilder. Like that was a really funny
And
movie.
that was
And
his
he was,
debut, right?
I
More or
think
less,
so. At least
or
his first,
yeah,
where he was the headliner, I believe.
yeah.
But he was essentially he was Deadpool then too. I mean, he's really really good at just being sarcastic and very fast paced with
Yeah.
his quips
And that's what
I've
was.
always liked him, but then he kind of had a run, I guess, of just movies that were just, turd after turd. And, he kind of just never found his groove. But now this is like a role that he just seems like he was great.
It is his
Deadpool.
role.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine, people talked about after his first appearance, who else would you get to play Deadpool? And even though that first movie, Wolverine Origins, was so bad, and his character was so mistreated, uh, people still said, I would not want no one else as Deadpool. I just want a better Deadpool.
Just a better Deadpool. And and thankfully they just didn't hold anything back.
No.
I mean, the movie is like, I can see a little apprehension. I mean, it is raunchy.
It is
and for like a superhero movie, it is really, really raunchy. But that's part of what makes it so great too.
And for me, that's actually something that I loved about it, and something that comes across from the comics, is that Deadpool comics almost always are full fucking throttle.
Nice.
To go blue. So we just went blue for the first time on the podcast. We cursed on the podcast, or I cursed on the podcast. First of many, by the way. First of many.
I'm going to try not to swear because my mama might be listening, but it's not going to happen.
That's fine. That's fine. I doubt any of my family will ever listen because they pretty much don't know what a podcast is.
I think only my mom will be listening. So.
Yeah. And then she'll do it. It's like, oh, Sean, your lovely little podcast. It was so cute.
Oh, you're so great.
But could you stop talking about those horrible things you're talking about?
You need to talk about dick so much.
Well, I mean,
yeah, Mom.
We're definitely going to throw out some references to dicks.
Deadpool had quite a few references to dicks.
Deadpool had a ton of references to dicks. One of the best posters was him holding his 50 cal at crotch level.
And by the way, don't try that at home.
Yeah, definitely do not shoot your 50 cal anywhere near your crotch.
In your pants. I would say don't even put the gun, but yeah, literally don't fire your gun when it's in your pants.
Also, getting shot in the butthole apparently is not a fun thing.
I never really worried about that until yesterday, and now I'm quite frightened.
And now you're terrified.
It kept me up at night. That just does not sound good.
So you said earlier that you didn't even really know what Deadpool's did you even think that Deadpool was
we get shot in the butthole? No.
Well, I mean, even beyond that, did you even think that Deadpool had powers or was a hero based on what you knew about him?
I figured he had to have some kind of power, but it's funny. I didn't actually know it was the regeneration, essentially.
Yeah, so he has
very similar to Wolverine.
Literally the exact same. In fact, in some of the comics,
which is also why he likes to tease Wolverine.
Correct. Yeah, he loves harassing Wolverine in the movie and in the comics. He really does a good job. They did a great job in the movie, constantly referring to the Hugh Jackman Wolverine, which I really loved. All of those references.
That's really, really good.
But what's interesting in the comics, actually, to take us back to that, he is part of the same program that created Wolverine. So in some of the origin storylines, which to be honest, I know I recommended that you read a new Origins comic for Deadpool, but I don't know what his current origin is because of all the recent shakeups with Marvel.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that. Like, what are the comics that you should, if we're trying to catch up, we'll talk about that.
But in one of the original storylines, he actually was part of the Weapon program. So Wolverine was Weapon X or Weapon 10, and Deadpool was one of the other weapons, which he was considered to be a failed project, obviously, because of his the cancer that caused him to go insane. And which actually, touching on the origin, they did a really good job in the movie. They basically represented his origin.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I have no idea what the comic books are, whether that's accurate or something. But that's a great thing. It is cool when they're able to, actually follow what happened.
Yeah, so they did a really good job of tying in the original origin and, bringing it up to speed to where it made sense in the movie. So it wasn't so much an origin movie. And I actually think as a movie, especially a Marvel movie, this is one of the things that Fox did really well where they have not done so well before. They did an origin movie that didn't feel like a crappy origin movie because, nowadays it's almost become a trope where the origin movie is going to be, it's all right, you have fun.
Yeah.
Think back to the first
sometimes, not that you should take your time. I mean, you want to set the backstory. You want to kind of, make it dramatic, earn
Yeah.
what's going to happen. But there are times when it's like, for God's sake, where's that superhero? Like the
When-
first Hulk movie,
when are
it
they
takes
gonna
like
throw
over an hour before you see the Hulk. And you're,
or I loved Man of Steel. I loved that movie.
that was but
it took a long time for him to put that fucking suit on.
Yeah, this one, like they did it was right off the bat. They had the action scene and they did a nice job of kind of intertwining the story
History
with action scenes to kind of keep it going at a nice pace. And that's what's great too, is I mean the movie was just well paced. Like I never was bored. No. I was always interested in what was happening.
And they did a really good job, even though. So one of the interesting things about this movie that Deadpool in the movie constantly says it's a love story.
Yeah,
and it actually does end up being a love story.
It's not untrue,
and it hits really well actually. Like some of the beats when it comes to the romance between he and his love, which I feel terrible. I think her name was Vanessa.
I can't remember.
They did a
really job of, the hot girl from Serenity and Homeland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the hot chick from Serenity.
Great actress.
Which I'm the prostitute from Serenity.
Right.
We're going with that.
And in this one, she played a prostitute.
Companion.
She's kind of getting typecast, I guess. Oh, companion.
Yeah,
right,
she's a companion in Firefly. A lot of brown coats will razz on you, your brother included. But they did a really good job of bringing in a love story and making you understand why the character is damaged in the way that he is, but also he was fucked up to begin with. And this love story kind of made him more relatable, even though he's nuts. And I think that was a good thing for the character.
It helps humanize him a little bit.
Yeah, and it helps people who don't know Deadpool. So, if they went full crazy throttle, maximum overdrive Deadpool, I think it would have been difficult.
It also helps, like he's he says he's not a hero, and it's sort of like he's not really a good guy. He kind of does his own thing, but at least they're kind of laying the groundwork. It's like, no, like deep down you can kind of feel like there's something good about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least from the movie. Like I'm sure there are comic books that maybe go the other way.
That's quite literally what they did in the Dark Age comics. Is all of these heroes were anti-heroes. But Deadpool was the one that he was so lovable, or became so lovable because of his personality, that people were like, "Oh, it's okay if you kill people. And no problems here.
As long as you're
you just you keep on murdering and just stay on your
you can be a psychopath killing people as long as you're a charming psychopath killing people."
And I think that's an important life lesson. That you get from this
very
movie.
much.
So, what were some of the things about the character and about the movie that kind of surprised you?
That is a really good question. Like, I don't know if anything. I would have said the most surprising thing was how violent and how just kind of silly and like absurdly, gloriously vulgar things are. But I kind of. At least I knew that was sort of coming.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much of a surprise, but it's still to see it like, wow, like this is Marvel. I mean, this is Disney. This is like one of their cash cows, and that they're willing to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like it is really cool to actually see like, wow, that that did get made and they did pull it off, and it doesn't feel like they held anything back.
So and once again, because this was a Fox produced, because Fox owns the licensing for the X-Men movies. Well, no, but I mean, because of Marvel's control and partial ownership, obviously, and because of Disney's now ownership of Marvel, it is really interesting that this movie even got made.
I didn't realize that.
And what's kind of interesting in the comics, they have to a degree from what I've read, but I also, to be honest, I have a little bit of Deadpool fatigue, because in the mid 2000s,
I'm just getting started.
You're just getting started, so you're set, but. In the early to mid 2000s, Deadpool became Wolverine, and he started showing up in almost everything, and that's just ramped up over time.
Yeah.
I mean, so Spider-Man is Marvel's most recurring hero.
Right.
But then I think after that you go to Wolverine, and then there are a couple of the other top heroes like Captain America or Iron Man, and then you get to Deadpool.
Yeah.
Which he's not what most people consider to be a traditional Marvel hero, but because he is appearing in so many things, he's an Avenger right now in Marvel Comics continuity. He is an Avenger.
So is he going to be
Captain America? Is
Deadpool ever going to be in any of the Avenger movies, or is that the whole Fox Disney?
So that's Fox Disney split. Probably not right now, but who knows? I mean, Sony just cut a deal to have Spider-Man be in the Avengers movies. So we very well could
Yeah.
see a world where Deadpool appears, and I think that Marvel Disney is going to have to make that happen to increase the longevity of their franchise, because you've got people like uh, Chris Evans says that he probably won't do too many more Captain America
He says that.
appearances in
And I'm
films.
sure it's not the easiest role. I mean, it's
I-
year-round training.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, you're constantly training. You have to do a movie
as an
every
actor, I'm
3
sure you get
years.
bored. You want to challenge yourself with something different. But,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially after you were the Human Torch in a really crappy Fantastic Four movie.
but better than the other.
Way better than
I
the
haven't. I didn't see the current one. To be fair, I was too scared from.
I haven't seen it either, but
we'll have to. That'll be one of our episodes.
We'll have to go slumming.
Yeah, we'll go through all the bad comic book movies.
I agree. So one of the things that I think is probably going to get people about Deadpool that they're definitely not going to know unless they know Deadpool going in is the fact that he breaks the fourth wall. So he interacts with the audience.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that in the movie?
I would say that most times I'm kind of hesitant when movies do it. Like sometimes it's funny, but then they might go back to it too many times and it starts to kind of wear itself out.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, though, it didn't wear itself out. I always found it pretty funny, actually, when they were talking about it. And they were also making fun of the Marvel, franchise in general.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts is when he goes to the Professor Xavier's school, and he's like, "Wow, this is a big building. How come there's only 2 of you in here?"
Why are there?
It's like they won't pay to have anyone else in the movie. It's
exactly.
like they're very, clever things like that. And so, yeah, I found them to be very, very funny.
Yeah, they had a lot of great fourth wall breaking moments, and
it worked
from the intro where they did the directed by some dude.
That was one of the better
starring a humorous whatever.
That was one of the better intro credits ever. The way
the slow-mo intro with all of the funny references. So speaking of references in that, we'll get to this also later, but there were a ton of references in the first 5-7 minutes of the movie to Deadpool's origin, which I really liked. So on the Starbucks cup that's floating around inside of the car while it's slow motion wrecking, the name on the cup was Rob Liefeld. After they finish the crash scene and they're on the highway, the 2 street signs that they have are Nicaea Nicaea Road or something, or Nicaea Drive, and Liefeld Road. So once again, references to his creators. So,
and something that I definitely did not notice.
Yeah, and I as all of the people that went to the movie with me can attest, including my fiance, I snorted and goose laughed a ton during this movie.
You have the best public laugh I think I've ever heard.
Because
it is.
They peppered so many great references to the comics and to the character. And there's one that we'll get to once again in a second.
And you have the laugh when you start laughing in a public place. It's like contagious. It just starts making everybody else start laughing
the
around
dude
you.
Next to me. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and get to it. So at one point in the movie, Deadpool at the very end, when they're storming what is totally a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, even though S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist in this world, and.
What?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because Fox doesn't have any rights to S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's totally a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, but it's no references to S.H.I.E.L.D., no logos, no anything. But
they ripped off the decal on the front of it.
They sanded it off. Yeah. They took the CG from the last Avengers movie and just sanded it off with a CG sander. Deadpool grabs a guy when he's killing all the mercenaries, and he's like, "Bob." And the guy takes off his hood and they start talking about their history together in Jacksonville. And Bob is actually a recurring character in Deadpool comics. And his name in the comics is Hydra Bob, because he's actually, when Deadpool first runs into him, and this was one of my favorite things that they did when Deadpool became kind of a too popular character and I started getting tired of him a little bit.
He peaked.
He peaked kind of. But this was during the Cable Deadpool days, which was a great run.
And now we're in the golden age of Deadpool, or at least it's going to be.
I would.
Well, the movie it's making a lot of money.
The movie
people
for sure.
love it.
Yeah.
And, people who there's a group of people who maybe don't like comic book movies that will
like this movie. Yeah, that's for sure. But oddly enough, Deadpool is appearing in tons of comics now again. So and obviously because of the movie. But Hydra Bob is this character that he just ended up following Deadpool around, and Deadpool was storming a Hydra base at some point, and I don't remember all the specifics, but somehow Deadpool just adopted this former Hydra soldier,
Yeah.
and he started carrying him around. So he takes him on all these adventures, and he's constantly trying to get this guy killed in seriously fucked up ways. So when the guy pulled off the mask, he said, "Bob," I was that was one of my goose laugh moments. That's for sure. My hee haw moments. But the movie was riddled with fun things like that.
It was.
Yeah.
And constant. I mean, there was just always some kind of joke going on. I think that was so great. Like, the movie works separately as a really good comedy and as a really good action movie. And it's kind of hard to sometimes, blend those two together seamlessly. And this one pretty much does that. It is funny, and it is well paced. Great action. It's great.
So what were some of the other things? Are there any other major points in the movie that really got you? Because I'd like to touch on a handful that really got to me as a comic book geek. So,
well, go ahead and say one of yours, and I'll think of some other scenes.
So I already made reference to all of the references to the Nicaea and Leafield Streets and all that stuff. I really love that because for me, just a trip back home. Obviously, Hydra Bob was absolutely the highlight for me because that was one of my favorite things.
You got a chance to geek out.
Right? Yeah, that was one of my favorite things that they've added to the Deadpool mythos, and I really hope that he comes back in the next movie. And maybe this is one of those things where I really wish they would cut a deal with Marvel and Disney and say, can we just call him Hydra Bob and have him show up next time in a Hydra outfit, and then have Deadpool take him on as a really shitty and sadistic sidekick. Funny thing about Hydra Bob, he even at one point Deadpool alludes to giving him health benefits.
Yeah,
as part of one of the hazard benefits of
little
working
inside
with him
joke.
as a pseudo mercenary. I actually thought this was the best version. Not that we've seen that many, but this was absolutely the best version of Colossus that we've seen in the movie.
Yeah, I had a conversation about that earlier with my brother and his wife, and we were arguing does he even show up in any of the other movies? And he does, but it was so unmemorable that we totally forgotten. But in this role, I mean, he other than Deadpool, he's basically kind of the most predominant superhero.
Yeah, and they glossed over him in previous X-Men movies. They glossed over him being Russian. They also glossed over him being I guess he was young in those, but being very much of a do-gooder and being very idealistic because he's,
and that definitely comes across, and that's great because it balances out Deadpool.
Yeah, and he was the perfect foil for Deadpool, and the other reason why he was great for the movie is no matter how much he's going to say, no, you can't kill people, at the same time, because Peter Colossus, is so nice and so caring about life and stuff. He's not going to chastise Deadpool too much because he knows Deadpool is killing bad people, but he doesn't want him to kill people because it's wrong, because it's not what X-Men do and all this stuff. But I really enjoyed that we got a good version of the X-Men. Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Okay, that was it. Yeah. That is quite the name. Is there a shorter version for that?
No. Well, I mean, sometimes they call her Teenage Warhead, and I will be completely honest.
Teenage Warhead.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Warheads or something.
Yeah, that name was hysterical.
Yeah, so I don't know as much about her as I should because she was part of the New Mutants. She's a really interesting character because she's always like this, almost like a soothsayer about all the horrible things that will happen, and horrible things tend to, as I understand it, happen to her. So she's she's a really dark character, and some of the things that have happened to some of the X-Men, she's been the person that not necessarily predicted it, but foretold it in a way.
And she doesn't have very many lines, kind of purposely, because that's sort of who her character is.
Yeah,
But
and
it's like
they
it's
use
funny.
her.
She's essentially just a moody teenager, but
Yeah.
they do find a way to make her very likable.
Yeah, and they use her in
Yeah.
that way in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, they need a joke for Deadpool to make. It's like, oh, you're just a moody teen who's going to spend time on her phone,
Right.
and then holy crap, you're actually a hero in training. So
how are you going to address me with silence or something mean? And be like,
the constant interaction
Yeah.
between the two of them, and then the final "you're cool"
Yeah.
was great.
Well, how can you not like Deadpool? He is cool.
I mean, he is cool, absolutely.
Or even if you don't like Deadpool, he's cool.
I would also agree there. I mean, but Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, the fact that we saw the Blackbird, the traditional plane, the SR-71 that the X-Men fly.
Another thing I missed.
It's just the Xavier School, everything that they did about the X-Men. It was a good X-Men movie, even though it was a Deadpool movie, because they finally intermingled the worlds and the constant pursuit. So the constant
and
pursuit
two heroes that you don't really know about, or at least from the movies.
Yeah, and that's actually what I really liked about it is they gave two X-Men who are never going to be top bill X-Men, more than likely at least.
But yeah, I mean it's a Deadpool movie, and he obviously is the star of the show. But they hold their own when they're on screen,
and everybody does. I actually, after thinking about it, because I can
I can't really think of any weak spots. Like I'll say one of my so every Marvel when Stan Lee does his guest spot, this is one of the better ones. This might actually be the best one.
I would argue this is the best.
I won't disagree with that. I think it is. Yeah.
And I don't want to say anything about what it is.
We'll spoil everything else.
Yeah, we will spoil everything else.
We'll leave this one alone.
That was the moment that was infinitely unbelievable to me in this movie. Unbelievable in the sense that they got, and I know that Stan Lee is less of a clean cut guy, or he's a clean cut guy, but he also is willing to do crazy funny stuff for
he doesn't seem like a prude, but he's also never really been like in
correct and the fact that they did that cameo and that he did that cameo, I mean, and
he was really good at it too.
He was perfect at it. He was perfect at it.
He comes in, he delivers his one or two lines, and I mean, it was great.
And I did not know that he had a cameo in this movie, so that was one of those delightful surprises for me.
I guess I assumed there would be one, but definitely didn't. I did not.
Well, they've kind of broken that lately. They don't always do cameos for him. He wasn't. I think some of the recent X-Men movies he hasn't been in. I want to say he wasn't in the latest Avengers movie, but I don't remember that one as well.
I guess they're making Sony movies. Maybe he can't.
Well, and I think they're just being a little bit more choosy about which ones he cameos in. But yes, by far, Stan Lee cameo, second favorite scene in the entire movie.
Yeah.
No questions.
Your first favorite scene was when you got shot in the butthole.
No, that was yours because
that's right. That was mine.
You like poop stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
No, I guess my first favorite scene was the intro. Was the just intro, getting to Deadpool as a character.
It was the best, and then it wasn't like everything was downhill from there. I mean, it was pretty even keel. But wow,
once again, movie was like full throttle, pedal to the metal.
The very first scene is action packed and hysterical, and it's just that's exactly what's going to happen. The rest of the movie
sets up the character perfectly.
Yep.
So we've talked about what we liked, and we've talked about were there anything that you didn't like about the movie?
God, honestly, like. It's funny you say it. Like I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie, but then when I think of criticism, I'm like, well, I don't really know what I'd criticize.
Yeah.
The movie, like when I watch a movie, if a movie can maintain my attention from beginning to end, with really no lulls, then it's a damn good movie.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be hard for you too, right? Like paying attention to the movie.
I don't pay attention. It's not my thing. It's not my forte. But this one, like from beginning to end, I was hooked and I was really into it. And no flaws come to mind other than maybe some picky things you can think of, or maybe the second time I see it, there'll be things I'm like, oh well, that. But right now, no, I can't think of anything.
No, I'm still riding the high of the movie too.
Where would you rank this in terms of your superhero movies?
I
thought about it.
It feels strange to me to rank this one in with the other Marvel movies because this one is not meant to be a serious movie. Like it's once again taking, which we're probably getting ahead of ourselves into another episode, but it's why I'm excited about Rogue One, the new Star Wars anthology movie that's coming out. It's a different kind of superhero movie that falls into that category, but then shifts it a couple of deviations to where it's more interesting for a different type of audience. I don't know where I'd rank it in like a true fashion, but it's definitely in the tops.
I think, I should probably spend some more time, but just like immediately thinking about it, the only ones I would say would be better is I would say the first Avengers, and then I really like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Love Guardians.
And then I'd have to say this one would be number 3.
Really?
And yeah.
So what about you've seen Captain America: Winter Soldier?
And then the first or not the first. Actually, the first X-Men was great. The second X-Men, what was that, back in 2003?
The original run.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Like those were all good. I mean, and Iron Man is a solid movie, but
you would actually put Deadpool up there
because it kept my attention the entire time.
Yeah.
And it.
Fair enough.
And like with Avengers, I mean, the bar was set so much higher and they pulled it off. So, I mean, there's kind of that. I mean, Avengers was just an amazing movie. But yeah, Deadpool, I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really did too. And I can't point to anything specific that I didn't like about the movie. Once again, I'm definitely still riding the high. I want to talk about it.
Like I almost feel like we should go back and watch it again so we could be a little more critical. Because I'm sure there's things that we're missing, but nothing comes to mind right now.
It is what it is. I mean, the movie is unabashedly, it tells you who it is at the beginning. And I love when a movie tells you what it's going to be or who it's going to be and sticks with it and doesn't compromise that and just says, fuck it. And I'm going to be a funny superhero movie where I fucking kill people and it's gratuitous violence. And there are all of these great jokes, which, speaking of, we didn't talk about it, but the one thing I do want to bring up, because I want to get your take on it, his relationship to the blind woman.
Yeah, that was
stays with.
Yeah,
was that?
So is that in the comics?
I don't know if it is or not. I haven't looked into it. I don't recognize her, so it could be a more recent thing that they've done with him.
It was a little weird. Maybe it's funny you mentioned like things we didn't like. Maybe that's one of the flaws. Except it's still kind of funny.
I mean, it's great.
Like it's weird. It doesn't make sense, but it's still
the fact that they
it's a blind woman with a cocaine problem, and that's his roommate. It's like that's bizarre, but yet it somehow still kind of works.
Well, one of the things that I really liked about that is when they literally first meet in the laundromat. They're talking about he's talking about how he got blood in his white costume, which that was hilarious.
Plus, if she's blind, how does she know that?
That's my question. How did she actually know? And so, I mean, she might be like a daredevil motherfucker.
Oh, maybe she has superpowers.
And maybe
heightened sense of smell.
Yeah, maybe so.
She can smell blood, just like sharks.
But one thing I was curious if it surprised you. Did Deadpool's face surprise you? The whole him being
I didn't know.
Scarred.
I didn't know. I did not know he looked like that.
He looked like
it's funny because like
testicle with teeth, as they
or was it an avocado, like an uglier avocado or something like that?
That was a really good one.
Yeah, that was. And then Ryan Reynolds is a handsome man, and you're kind of taking away part of his,
But the one point where I was like, oh come on, really guys, is when he took off his shirt. And he had a full, still like, even though he's Freddy Krueger motherfucker, he
still had abs. That's a little weird, yeah.
And then we got to see Deadpool Dome at a certain point.
Sort of. It's silhouetted.
Yeah, I mean,
you can tell
silhouetted Deadpool dick. So that happened in the movie. Another highlight of the film, I would say.
If you love penis,
if
you love seeing penis and penis jokes, this is the movie for you.
8 out of 10 Freddy Krueger dicks for this movie. 8 out of 10 Freddy Krueger dicks. But so I wanted to walk you through a couple of interesting things about Deadpool, the character.
From the comics.
From the comics, yeah. Just as kind of some weird trivia that you can take with you, take this away. So in the movie, they demonstrated that he was kind of a mutant, but kind of not.
Yeah.
And in the comics, they've actually done the same thing, where originally he thought he was a mutant. Or in certain storylines, he thought he was a mutant, but then it was later proven that he wasn't.
So he doesn't have his abilities?
So he does have the abilities, but he's not a mutant by birth.
A product of science, as opposed to...
Or torture or weapon programs, that is kind of... whatever. So that's always been neat with his character. But and as I mentioned earlier, he was part of the same program.
We should probably warn someone. If you have cancer and someone's offering to treat it, I would think twice after seeing Deadpool.
Or maybe not. What if that's your family?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, I might.
It was a weird thing too because then it's like, oh, we're just going to torture you, and if it doesn't work, then you'll die. And I was like, well, I guess they had cancer; they're going to die anyways.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a zero-sum kind of deal.
Yeah. What's the problem?
No, the only downside, obviously,
maybe a little bit of kidnapping, but other than that,
you end up looking like Freddy Krueger's testicle.
Yeah.
Obvious downside, but still not that bad. Okay, I can.
No, you may have looked like that. I guess if you look like Ryan Reynolds, and then you have to go to that.
Yeah,
that's one thing. But maybe,
But me, I mean,
yeah, like
not
sure.
It's just like one shift.
I already look like an old testicle, so that's a little bit
I'm
more.
an old testicle. I'm just not, or I'm a young testicle, I guess in my case. I'm just not Freddy Krueger's testicle. So I'm just one shift off. Anyways, the one thing I will say, the villain was really weak. Ajax kind of sucked.
Yeah. Well,
he was just your standard British villain, which they made
they make fun of in the beginning.
They make fun of in the beginning, but
well, it was weird too because then he, so his superpower was he didn't feel pain, but then he was also super strong.
So this is weird.
So then it's like, what's the point? Like, I get how you can,
but he wasn't actually super strong though. He just
he held the guy up by his hand, like holding it up, and he held his own with Deadpool and everyone.
Yeah, he was kind of strong, but yeah, they said. I guess that was kind of inconsistent. They said that he lost all of his nerve ending.
Yeah. See, that's the funny thing too. Yeah. Like that actually happens in real life, where some people are born where they can't feel pain. That's not an ability. That's like a detriment because they're constantly injuring themselves.
Burning myself on accident and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So another interesting fact about Deadpool is there are a group of Deadpools. So there's
more than one.
There are more than one. Somehow, I don't know the full history about this, but it's just a funny thing to know. There's a Lady Deadpool, which they call Lady Pool. If you're reading comics right now, there's actually a Gwenpool, which is a Gwen Stacy / Deadpool, Lady Deadpool giant pile, which is like
hybrid.
Gwen Stacy. I'm sure at some point when we talk about Spider-Man, I will bring up my ardent love of Gwen Stacy and how everything about the relationship between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy defined my life.
Gwen Stacy than Mary Jane.
Oh, very much more Gwen Stacy than Mary Jane. There is a squirrel Deadpool. There is a dog Deadpool.
I was gonna say there's gotta be a dog. Yeah.
That they call dog
monkey Deadpool.
I don't know if there's.
Well, now I know what I'm gonna write now. Little fan fiction.
Your first fan fiction could be the monkey pool. And there are tons of other versions. They even had a Deadpool before the recent Marvel Secret Wars.
Now
they had Deadpool Core.
Are these like in addition to Deadpool, or is this Deadpool gets like transformed into?
No. These are not alternate universe. For the most part, I don't think they're alternate universe Deadpools. They are just straight up Deadpool other characters.
Wow.
So they're just happen to be pools. And
how are the comics?
They're okay. I never read Deadpool Core, which I probably need to go back and check into at some point. But my stacks are too big right now, so getting back to historical stuff. But yeah, I've got facts.
Fat stacks of comics.
Yes, fat stacks of comics. Yes.
You walk in your house, and I mean, it's just comics.
Well, I mean, I do have dead hooker storage in my house where I keep my comics.
Just put those in the recycling bin, and then you got more room for comics.
Get new comics. Yeah. Along with the dead hookers. So another interesting fact about Deadpool. His primary love interest in the Marvel Universe is a character named Death. Huh. And Death is the literal embodiment of death, and it's a woman.
Is she hot?
She is. She's super hot. But sometimes she's represented as you would expect Death to be represented, where she's, just a fucking skeleton in black robes. But other times she's this hot female Death. Hot
female Death. You know what? If I'm gonna die, I'd like to go out with hot female Death. That sounds like a pretty good way to go.
Neil Gaiman did it with Sandman, so it makes perfect sense to keep that going with the Marvel version of Death. But what's really interesting about Death is that Thanos, the main villain that has been kind of haunting the Avengers and tied in films for a while, is actually in love with her. So Thanos is almost always in contest with Deadpool. And there have been some really great Thanos versus Deadpool comics because they're battling mano a mano because they're battling over the same woman.
I don't know enough about comics, but that seems like Deadpool would have his work cut out for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the man who fought the Avengers, who had the Infinity Gauntlet, who caused such problems for the
like all these
multiverse
other
of Marvel.
all the
Yeah.
superheroes, so they're just gonna take him on.
But then if you
Seems a
think
little
about it,
wishful thinking on Deadpool's part, but
if you think about it, Squirrel Girl beat Doctor Doom, so
wow.
anything can happen in the Marvel
Yeah.
universe.
You never know. That's why you play the game.
But the most interesting thing about Deadpool is that very recently he killed the entirety of the Marvel universe. Even
That was one of the comics you recommended for me
Yeah.
to read after
Yes.
this. Yeah.
which is a great segue into recommendations to get into Deadpool. So a couple of things that you can do to get into Deadpool. I'm a huge fan. This was something that I was reading in my last stint with comics of the Deadpool and Cable run. Super great. I would highly recommend it for everybody. But there are a few other comics that I would recommend. Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. There's also Deadpool Origins that they did when they started doing a lot of X Origins books. And then the Deadpool video game I've heard is really good. I haven't played it, but a lot of people have played it and said that it's
When
really
did that
fun.
come out?
It came out a few years ago, but they re-released it this past year on current gen consoles,
Okay.
so on the PS4 and the Xbox One. So,
Have to give it a shot.
any final thoughts? The only other thing that I wanted to make reference to is because they did Cable versus Deadpool. Really love the fact that in the end credit scene they threw to Cable, saying that Cable would be in the next movie. I mean, to me, that is balls to the wall crazy and wonderful. So,
And I had no idea what Cable was. I was
Yeah.
like, Cable, I have a satellite dish.
nice. So we'll have to talk about Cable in the future.
We will,
too. So,
yeah.
Any final thoughts before we cut off?
Just that Deadpool was a really great movie. I enjoyed it. I think that's going to be one of the best movies I see this year in any genre. It's probably going to always be one of the top superhero movies of my lifetime.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I am looking forward to reading the comics and getting to know more about Deadpool because he seems like a cool guy.
So now that I've Sherped Sean through Deadpool to a degree,
You've done a great job.
Sherped some folks through
Yes.
through Deadpool. We'll go ahead and close out. But next time we'll maybe talk about some of your experiences with comics when we get to our next topic.
Sounds great.
But anyways, for everyone listening at home or watching, if we do post this video somewhere, nerd on.
Nerd on!